Okay, this next story I'm about to read in my novel called The Black Rock Redemption, or Allah's New Black Rock, is called The Tower. 2 hours later, Mr. Rahman was driving about on the Black Rock Desert drinking tequila and listening to the music of the CD, mixing it up before 9/11, which he decided to buy off of the bartender to take out on the playa. As Rahman listened to LSDJ's Better Off Alone, the dog he kidnapped had his snout out the window, scanning the wind to sense anything that might interest him. When Mr. Rahman was halfway out on the playa, half the bottle of tequila was gone, and he was listening to the song "Mind Circus" by Way Out West by the Gabriel and Dresden Sunset Edit remix. Mr. Rahman looked at the dog and laughed, saying, "Look, no hands!" And he ended up traveling about 30 miles per hour with no hands on the steering wheel. Believing that his obeying Koran 911 in an exploded Reno casino would give him a clean slate to enter Jannah, paradise, he saw his old prayer rug in the back of his vehicle and got a devious look in his eyes. While his SUV continued to travel, Mr. Rahman took another swig of tequila, crawled into the back of it while the vehicle continued to head north under the whim of the terrain on the wheel. And after taking another swig of tequila, he chucked the prayer rug out the window with the most liberating feeling ever. It was as if a huge, crushing, oppressive weight, as if a huge, crushing chain had been removed from his neck, and he began to cry from how it all felt to be free. Of how he hated looking like he wanted gay sex on a prayer rug 5 times a day, facing a big, black, dark object in a desert that was once filled with pagan Arab idols and destroyed by Abu Tyr of the Carmatians, destroyed and defiled by the leader of the Carmatians as he mocked Allah to send his birds to protect the Kaaba using clay of fire that never came. Rahman just laughed and laughed, the tears of joy pouring out of his eyes to know that with the freedom of no longer having to stop 5 times a day to have his ass in the air on a prayer rug, looking like he wanted gay sex, he would be rewarded with eternal young beautiful girls with swelling breasts, hymens that would grow back after being defiled, and huge dark eyes of the most beautiful kind. He thought of the female YouTube video personality Magibon, who to him was a perfect model of what would greet him once he detonated the bomb when he crashed through a few gambling machines. The more infidels in that casino, the more I hit the jackpot, Rahman laughed. Rahman laughed again and said, "I shall be the first Shahid to gamble with comfort lives in that casino." As Mr. Rahman's SUV continued to drive less over the terrain to move driverless over the terrain of the desert, Mr. Rahman, now very drunk, saw a cloud of dust curving around from behind and following him. It got closer and closer. Mr. Rahman sat in the back of his vehicle looking at his dog, who seemed concerned for him. Mr. Rahman laughed and said, "If it's the police, I'll tell them they can't arrest me for driving drunk, because clearly I'm not driving. I'm just drunk." Mr. Rahman laughed and laughed over the freedom he was feeling. A few minutes later, Mr. Rahman noticed that the vehicle had caught up to him. It was 2 young girls in a Jeep riding topless. The 2 girls were laughing and waving at Mr. Rahman, saying, "Hi, old man, hi, old man." When they saw that no one was driving, they looked shocked to see no one was driving Rahman's SUV. When they saw that was no one driving, they looked shocked. Yeah, period. They looked shocked. One of the girls shouted at Mr. Rahman, "Where's your driver? Did the rapture take place?" Mr. Rahman shrugged and smiled. The Jeep with the 2 the two naked girls sped up and drove off to the west, disappearing into the distance. Thinking that he might want to see if he could, quote, marry, unquote, those two pretty girls and have them as, quote, wives, unquote, for an hour or two before divorcing them with a pronouncement of "I divorce you" said 3 times, Mr. Rahman crawled back to the driver's seat and got control of his vehicle. He was just about to see if he could find them by following the girl's dust when suddenly Mr. Rahman saw something flashing to the left of him that was so strange it took his mind totally off of sex. Mr. Rahman slowed his vehicle down to a crawl and saw what seemed to be a very long black strip of videotape glistening across the sky, waving like a very long banner. It moved up and down, and ever so often looked like lightning to the drunk Mr. Rahman when the setting sun struck it a certain way. Mr. Rahman wondered where the long strip of videotape emanated from. As Mr. Rahman drove into the direction where the desert wind was raising and lowering the videotape from, Rahman noticed that the tape seemed to be miles in length. When he found the place, Rahman discovered that it was attached to a 100-foot tall metal pole that was not really a pole, but a bunch of tree trimmers attached end to end, possibly welded and taped together during some Burning Man time. At the top of the metal pole was a big silver ball, the size of a basketball, that shimmered in the setting sun. And coming right out of the side of the silver ball was the videotape. The shimmering videotape reminded Mr. Rahman of a slow-motion lightning bolt shooting out of it, a lightning bolt shooting toward the east, or wherever the desert wind blew it. But why? Wondered Mr. Rahman. Mr. Rahman began to feel he was going to get his answer when he noticed certain objects taped to the pole. Every 5 feet up there were 5 feet of pole covered up, about 10 DVDs attached to it with a strong silver-colored tape. It was that way all the way to about 5 feet from the silver ball with the videotape. Trailing off of the videotape, trailing off into the wind. At the bottom, there were only 3 DVDs attached, all in reach to a person of normal height. As the song "Beautiful Strange" by Bedrock played off of his SUV speakers, Mr. Rahman tried to pull one off. Tried to pull one. I have to stop it. I better stop it here. Yeah.